Okay, it is now February 27th, 2023. I've had this property officially the start of our 3-year lease for about 2 months, obviously. And I'm just reflecting a little bit now on everything that it took to get the property the way it is right now. Um, all of the dirty, unseen work that really goes unnoticed or that a lot of people don't consider when managing something like this at this scale, especially with the team that I have and the resources I have. It's a lot of responsibility. And starting this farming journey, it's really been a test of what I would usually want to do, a test of my natural disposition, which is high efficiency, low output, um, high capital gain, right? And farming is pretty much founded on having honest work be manifest into results. So there's no hacking, there is no get rich quick scheme. Um, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way because it really makes me appreciate just how much work goes into creating the food that we literally take for granted every single day when we go to the grocery store or when we are busy throughout our day doing jobs or activities that detract away from the natural foundation of what we as beings as a species are, which are organisms fighting to survive. And you pretty much put yourself into the shoes, metaphorically speaking, of any other life form on the planet, and one of the main things that they have to take care of is security, having shelter, having a den, food, and reproduction. And we as a species have kind of moved past that point where we no longer have to worry about where our food comes from. And I believe that's kind of made a mental atrophy of sorts in how we think about where our food comes from. We just take it for granted. We think it's just a black box that, we hit a couple buttons on Instacart and a couple minutes later somebody delivers our food. Like, we're progressively getting into that point that I mentioned earlier where it's just become a normal thing how detached we are from our food and where it comes from. Um, when I started this farming journey, like, it's really been a active um, reset of my mentality. Somebody just texted me. Sometimes when you're in the flow, you just gotta ignore some stuff. Love y'all though, the ones that try to reach out to me. I had to put on my voicemail that, like, I'm off grid. Sometimes it may not be possible to reach me, and I really send my apologies in advance to the people that have found it hard to get a hold of me. I've just been mainly in my flow state and also just physically unable to answer many phone calls, which is very an anti um, characteristic of me, because I would be very quick to answer DMs, very quick to respond to things, but I'm realizing that at the end of the day, not a lot of people can help me besides the ones that actually physically come out here and put in the work. So I had volunteer days these past couple weeks, mainly January. We started with Sundays on the farm, and I was very, very surprised with how many people decided to come out. A lot of people, really took the effort to drive the hour away from the inner city in Miami to come, put their hands onto the earth. And there's not a lot going on here right now, not a lot of stuff growing besides the guavas, which I'm trying to get like off the ground, and the foundational stuff, which is the mulch, which we'll go over and check out very soon. But even so, just being in this space is a stark contrast to what a lot of people will get to experience on a day-to-day. Whether it's working remote at home, which I also do as well, uh, plenty of times, um, or whether it's going into an office in Brickell, Not a lot of people get away from that hum and drum of the city, of the Bayside trains and the traffic noises and the honking of the cars and Miami traffic, and just come out here and finally hear the birds sing and smell some fresh air or the stink of some manure decomposing on the side. But with all that being said, you know, this won't just be barren land forever, and I can already see the growth that we've had recently. So let me show you around the farm. So here is the start of our 5 acres of guava, and hopefully we'll get a little bit of lighting. But essentially, the USDA came out here and gave us an estimate of about 600 trees that we have currently on the property. I can't say that I've done a lot of the maintenance myself. It's actually been through the blessed efforts of my farm worker, OCNL. Part of this project has been me finding every avenue to pretty much connect with local landowners who have properties like this or just like languishing, and connecting them with farmers like myself. So I had to step into the role that I want to make for others. And they also provided me with labor. They provided me with somebody who's paid around the clock to take care of the trees and help me with a lot of the initiatives. I have to just come in with the resources and the big brain strategies of like what we're doing. But he also has a lot of experience himself, and he spent weeks coming out here and pruning all of these guava trees. So let me come over here. Each of these guavas have probably pounds and pounds and pounds of fruit, and my job is understanding what the things that we can do right now that are going to have long-term effects for us in the future. So that's getting the pests under control, pruning all of these with the help of OCNL, which has increased airflow, increased sunlight, and created less cramped spaces for the Caribbean fruit flies to, you know, create their eggs and just get out of control. Just from that little thing, that's helped with the weeding. That is pretty much cleared away the vines, the cramped clusters of branches that happen when trees get out of control and just go haywire. They need a little bit of a trim. And I believe that is helping the growth of a lot of the guavas. They're staying on the fruit, on the trees a lot longer. On average, each of them are not as spotty as they were. So what would happen is that ants would go up each of the trunks, and the Caribbean fruit flies would, you know, pretty much bite on the bite marks of the ants and create their pretty much larvae inside the fruit. But now I haven't noticed that at all in the fruits that I've pretty much done tests on. And we're gonna go a step further and start watering these bad boys, start applying a organic, pretty much an essential oil blend that has been shown to increase the photosynthesis, assimilation of the leaves, and just overall create a nice thin protective barrier around the leaves and the fruits so that they can be better protected as they grow and mature into maturity. Apart from that, we have 3 other projects. I have sourced some manufacturers from China to create some necessary components for my aeroponics system. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a minute. I've been doing a lot of hacky experiments in my garage, in my backyard, and I was able to grow some lettuces on a smaller scale, but now I want to be able to do it on a semi-professional, semi-commercial level. So over there, I won't get too close, we have a bunch of structures, metal structures that we can hoist AgroShade on, as well as some plastic, membrane material to protect whatever's underneath it from rainwater and to increase that level of humidity. And over here, where I'm going to show you, where I'm probably going to put some drone B-roll, is where we have 2.5 acres of land that have had all of this ground cover, layers upon layers of it throughout the property, that I had to remove my hand. And the whole point of me doing that is to be able to grow things in the ground. This is where I have a couple rows set up. I'm going to be growing some squash and peppers. I just want to get my XP up, plant some summer crops, maybe some okra, maybe some eggplant. But mainly, as all of that mulch breaks down into nice, healthy soil, I'm going to show you what that would look like. We're going to start a food forest concept here, right? Pretty much this part of the property. That's where I'm standing, all the way up to there. That's one nice thick vertical row. That's probably about 1/3 of an acre. And then the rest of this is about 1 acre. And let me show you what the soil currently looks like. Love this sunset, it's really great lighting. So if you ever worked in Florida, or any farmer will tell you, pretty much there is no soil here. It's just rocks, it's just sand, oolite. Almost akin to like concrete. Trust me, I've come out here with pickaxes and seen what's up. So that left very few options for me besides one, bringing in tons, literally tons of organic material of mulch, tree trimmings, palm cuttings, leaves, pretty much everything that, if you were to hire like a landscaper, or if you lived in a gated community and then they, through the HOA, hire landscapers like Brightview, if you live in South Florida, they chop up all of their tree trimmings, all of their hedge trimmings, they put it through a shredder, and they just dump it into these large trucks. And if you ever wondered where those trucks go to, usually they would have to pay to dump at like a large facility. Like, to give you an example, Atlas, Pete and Moss, they have an operation where, guys from South Florida, small landscapers and whatever, they line up, and then they, I don't know if they get paid to dump there or they have to pay to dump there, but essentially they take the raw material, they turn that into compost or soil just over time. That's one thing that you could do, leveraging land and resources like heavy equipment if you have it. And as a farmer, one of the things that I'm leveraging is having the empty space. So we reached out to a couple of those landscapers, a couple of those guys who are plugged in, and we were able to get tons and tons and tons of mulch. And I have to thank Clayton Santos for that, actually. He is a local farmer and a local business owner. Really dope dude. Like, if that connection didn't happen, I don't really know if this would even be possible. That was just one of the first blessings that I went through and I received when I first came down here in Homestead. Like, granted, I had access to this property for a year, and I was doing things, dealing with legal, dealing with the USDA, dealing with the agricultural tax exemption, pretty much talking to landowners, communicating. But I could never get on the ground and do the damage that I have since now that I'm pretty much living 8 minutes away from here. That's what happens when you're constantly exposed and constantly absorbing information and just networking with local farmers and just being there at the right opportunity. So real thank you, Clayton. Thank you, Estevan, for bringing over this mulch. I just had to give him a shout out. So that mulch is relatively new, and here and there I pretty much aerate it out with a pickaxe by hand. Once Junior comes with the rest of the mulch and we essentially fill up this entire area with piles here, he's like halfway done. I'm gonna come out here with a bobcat that I'm gonna rent and just spread it out. Spread it out until it's like literally knee high, if not more. And what happens is that mulch, if you're a farmer, you already know this, but like that mulch, it breaks down into a material like this, right? This has been sitting, this pile of mulch here has been sitting here for a couple months. I just wanted to show you, just like as a substrate, how moist that is, just removing it and getting underneath it, right? This hasn't really had any type of water. It hasn't rained in a week or two, and yet it is very moist down there because of that mulch. Mulch is pretty much a sponge that roots can suspend themselves on, and if it's fluffy enough, they can navigate through and create their root systems. Let's just say that. It is a ready source of carbon, and the other missing ingredient, nitrogen, would definitely help if you're planting crops. And I was stuck personally on, okay, I have all this mulch, and yes, through time, this will break down into perfect soil, but can I start sooner than that. What I'm gonna end up doing is, as part of a couple of experiments, instead of waiting, I'm going to split this up into probably 3 sections. I'm gonna do one section which is just no touch, just leave it, just let Mother Nature do its thing. And then another section, run irrigation on a schedule, probably once a week, probably twice a week, we'll see what happens. And then on another section, with my FPJ experiment, fermented plant juice, I want to see if adding certain nitrates intentionally to piles of mulch will help it break down faster. And then with my drone, take a couple aerial shots to see how that would work. Really, like the biggest, one of the biggest epiphanies I had, which is like how I work, is that instead of, you know, sitting on my hands and twiddling my thumbs and just waiting for Mother Nature to run its course, which it will through time and consistency, it will. What I could be doing is start doing A/B testing, just like a computer programmer, figuring out what works best and then sharing that with you guys. So this was a little farm update. I didn't really think that I would do something handheld like this, but I just wanted to be real and just show you guys a little bit about the property. There are certain elements of it that I am currently working on. The people that live in South Florida, on Saturdays I will be out here, so if you want to come on through and see the process. Again, these are the things that not a lot of people talk about. They just see the end product. They see the food forest or the community farm, and they're not really aware of, like, okay, well, who rented the dump trailer, who brought the manure, who set up the water, where does the water come from, where do we get our electricity from? All these things, even more so being out here, I had to do by myself. When you live in the inner city, that was a real culture shock for me, or just a shock. Oh my God, it's like a military helicopter coming through. Hold up. That's crazy. Homestead. But yeah, so one of the things that was very different and a shock to me, pretty much starting with this with the intention of being an urban farming network, being on an actual farm and not having the basic necessities, not having, you know, a community that can drop off compost, and not having, you know, pretty much instant access to local landscapers. Because if you work in like Fort Lauderdale, you could just reach out to a Fort Lauderdale landscaper and yeah, they could drop their mulch for sure. But when you're all the way out here, you have to know somebody. Otherwise, you're paying for like $200 truckloads. Another thing is electricity. There's no electrical poles out here at all. It's just land. And we had to set up our own solar panels. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. And the final thing, the thing that gives everything life, is water. Even though it rains a lot down here in South Florida, where does water come from? There are things like cones of depression and underground aquifers and wells that we had to dig, and it's all just a big learning curve that is locked into my noggin. I'm pretty sure that, like, with everything I've learned, I'll say this again probably in the future, you know, you take me into Home Depot, I know my way around that. I know my way around Home Depot. You know, the people that work there, I probably know more than them. Ron Swanson, let's get it. But that's all I wanted to say. This is a general farm update. Again, February 27th. This upcoming month, we'll have our Saturday volunteer days. Hope to see you guys very soon. And yeah, let's keep on.